Elephants? Hand mortars. Put the two of those into the same place, and you end up with a whole lot of death going on. As you can see, YouTube, my 20th celebration videos continue, this time with Empire Total War, where we have an interesting mashup between the Marathas Confederacy and Russia on a ridge map. Lots of bottlenecks, lots of fighting, and lots of exhaustion, explosions, and dying elephants. Who will win? Just wait and see. Hope you enjoy this one. Alright YouTube, welcome to the Siberian Pinnacle map on Empire Total War. This map is filled with choke points. There is a central ridge and lots of different areas that can be locked down. It's a very tactical map. You're going to have to really make some good decisions in order to win here. The player who submitted this is playing as the Russians. I'll get you the name either in the description or later on in the video. We'll see it towards the results screen. I believe he's got 5 units of line infantry. I believe it's 3 hand mortar companies. Hand mortar companies can fire basically a grenade at the same range as line infantry, albeit there's fewer men in those units. And he's got 1 Semenovsky foot guard, Hussars, Garde à Cheval. It's a guard horse unit. I want to say he's got some more. Yeah, here's some more cav menacing this flank. He's got a Cossack Ataman cavalry. Another Hussar unit, and a Household Cavalry, which is a heavy cav unit. And he is facing off, as you saw in the intro, against the Marathas. The Marathas player has brought a lot of Sikh Musketeers, which are one of the better shooting units available to the Marathas. Now, one thing you might want to bear in mind, the Marathas do not have access to long-range skirmishers of any sort. However, they do have access to some pretty powerful cannons and some interesting animals, namely elephants and camels. So you're going to run into some interesting units when you face off against the Marathas. If used correctly, they can be quite deadly, though on a flat map they will suffer because of their lack of range. But this is not a flat map, and the Russian player has not brought long range. So that would be your Sikh Musketeers. He's also brought a lot of Sikh warriors, and then also I want to say a couple of Hindu warriors, and he's got some interesting cav. Out here's a couple of units of Sipahis. These guys are heavy lancers, very good on a charge against infantry, really. Especially if it's a downhill charge. Let's check out some of the rest of his cav. Oh, he's got these ones over here. No, more Sipahis. 2 more Sipahis, so that makes 4. And he's got this interesting unit. I've never seen this unit before. It's a Rajput Zamindar. Don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, it looks like a heavily armored unit that fights with an axe. Very interesting unit. Like I said, there's more Sikh warriors. So looks like the Marathas player is set up to do some melee rushes and also some shooting. He's got a lot of musketeers, more so than the Russian player, and he's got a ton of melee units. He's also got more cav, including 2 war elephant units. The war elephants do not have the muskets, so they can't shoot, but they can cause a lot of damage in melee. So in any case, this, like I said, is a ridge map, and one of the first things you want to do is rush towards the summit. The Marathas player gets the first shots, but he allows his guys to fire most of their shots into the ground, and on Empire Total War, where the reloading is very slow, this is a mistake that many players make, and the Russian player is going to line up, get his men in better position before he opens his first volleys, and you're going to see that while the Russian player took some losses, let's see what it was, 7 losses? Let's watch the losses that the Marathas player takes whenever the Russian opens fire. You can see that he took 19 losses off that initial volley, and then more. So do not allow your guys to fire into the dirt. You can see that the Marathas players fired too early. When your guys are on fire at will, they will just simply fire regardless of whether they have a clear line of sight. It's not like Shogun 2 where they won't fire until they have a line of sight. Something to be aware of when you're playing this game. You're seeing hand mortars go off right now. The Russian player is using a strategy of line infantry up front, hand mortars behind. He moves his line infantry far enough forward that his hand mortars come within range, and his guys are then able to fire their hand mortars over the backs of his own line infantry and into the Marathas infantry. You can see that happening there. This is going to cause the Marathas to rout pretty quickly. There's a big cav fight going on here where the Russian brings in a Hussar charge into these Sikh warriors to slow them down. The Marathas player countercharges with Sipahis and routs the Russian Hussars, but not without taking losses to the nearby troops who are firing into this big blob. If you take a look out on all the flanks, the Russian player makes a mistake out here and runs some Hussars into these Sipahis. They'll get destroyed. There's some square off going on out here. We've got some Sikh musketeers squaring off against the Russian infantry, some Hindu warriors coming in, and then on this very far right flank or left flank of the Marathas player, he's still moving his troops into position. This is a ridge map, and bringing melee units is a risk. A risk not just because you may not be the first to the top of the hill, but a risk because your guys are going to get very tired running to the top of the hill. And whenever your troops get exhausted, they do very poor in melee, something to be aware of. There goes a Sipahi unit. The Russian has formed a square which has destroyed the cav, and it's going to effectively fend off these Sikh warriors as well. Although the Sikh warriors have high attack, their defense is probably not all that great, and whenever you go into a square on Empire Total War, it does increase your melee defense, so the Russian player in the square is going to be quite effective here at holding off these melee troops, especially since he has the terrain advantage. Yeah, you can see a pretty much across the line fight here where the Russian has gotten better positioning than the Maratha player. I'm going to zoom up here just for a minute so you can see the overall fight. Some of you said I get too many close-ups, so I'll try and back off a little bit and give you a view. You can see that the Marathas player is making a push on the far left. Up the center, the Russian is winning with his hand mortars, and also on the far right, well, I'm saying this from the Marathas point of view, the Marathas player is beating back some of the Russian cav. So right now the Marathas player is winning on the extreme flanks and not doing so great in the center. Here he's got some Sikh musketeers and Sikh warriors into melee with some of the Russian line infantry, and over here comes the elephants moving into position, or at least close. The Marathas player is trying to keep them alive. They can definitely get shot to pieces by infantry. Right here, this line infantry is reloading, or else they probably would have shot those elephants right there. You see these hand mortars are just absolutely devastating. It's like having grenadiers into your men, so you definitely need long-range units to try and help take those guys out, or some rear cav assaults. But in this particular map, you can see that cav assaults from the rear are difficult because you would have to come from a long ways away. The Russian player gains an advantage in this vicinity, but again, on the far flank, the Marathas launches an all-out huge assault onto the Russian right flank. It would be the Marathas left flank, and his Rajput horses and Sikh warriors break through the Russian lines and completely destroy the Russian infantry in this vicinity, and it looks like they're currently about to rout this household cavalry as well. So the Marathas player has busted through on both flanks. Up the center, this is the elephant charge that I showed you in the opening scene. This charge does go on into the Semenovsky foot guards, and he's able to cause like a little bit of damage here, tossing these guys around. But sometimes when the elephants toss people, they don't die, they get back up. And those Semenovsky foot guards are extremely tough troops, and they're able to fight off the elephants. Had these elephants gotten a hold of them on open ground, with a little bit better positioning, then it would have caused a lot of damage. But look, this unit that was in square still took almost 60 losses from those elephants. And that was with all the hand mortars and muskets firing. So when elephants do get into you in this game, the square won't save you. You really have to shoot them. That's the quickest way to get rid of them. You can see there the Marathas being chased out in the center. And the results are pretty similar in most areas. However, the Russian is taking pretty heavy losses in this particular vicinity. However, the Marathas player is about to get outflanked from the woods by the Russian line infantry that has become victorious in the other fight. So I think the interesting things to point out in this battle is, let's take a look at the terrain real quick. I think you can pretty much tell what's going on in the battle. Like I said, Marathas winning on the flanks, Russian in the center. But since the Russian is one in the center, he can now reallocate all of his troops as needed. Here you can see these elephants shredding up a Russian line infantry unit. These elephants are exhausted though, and once they get exhausted they tend to want to rout easier. And that's mainly just because whenever you're doing melee charges uphill, it's always a difficult battle. But he does get the elephants into the side of these troops. That's definitely going to help him out. Like I said, let's talk a little bit about this map. You can see that there's lots of choke points, like in between these rocks, for instance. These are great places for stake lines. Neither player brought long range, but sometimes when you do bring long range, staking up these points will force enemy cav to have to take the long way around, giving you the better opportunity to bottleneck them. So what do you do on a map like this? Well, number one, you do want to get control of the hill as soon as possible. But what do you do if your opponent has control of the hill? Well, you may have to try and tempt them down, and you can create your own kill points in these little choke areas. Just be aware that when your opponent is coming downhill, there is going to be some advantage to his men because they're fighting downhill, but you can use these areas to fire and retreat. Like I said, there's quite a few choke points and rocks in this map that constrict the movement. Let's get back in and see what happened with the flanking force. The Maratha's flanking force has gotten hung up on this Ottoman or Cossack infantry over here, and that Cossack infantry is able to hold them off for quite a long time and just further exhaust the melee troops that are there. Whenever you're using a melee build, you really don't want to be going for a long, drawn-out battle, and I'm sure that's probably not what the Maratha's player hoped for, but to be quite honest, whenever you consider this situation, you really want to consider the fact that if you bring a melee build on a map with tons of choke points that you're going to have to charge uphill through, it's probably not the ideal situation. The Ottoman could have brought like some shooter cav and other things to help harass the flanks and give him a little more availability to keep him pinned down. So say for instance shooter cav combined with quick moving light cav, you can force squares with the light cav and shoot with the shooter cav. Squares are not near as effective at shooting back on Empire Total War as they are on Napoleon, so it's an effective way of eating up a flank quicker than a melee assault. Because once these guys get exhausted, they're not going to fight very well. You all may remember some of my Pueblo Total Ownage videos from the past where I do those melee battles, and the thing that I wanted to do in those melee battles in order to succeed was to start a fight quickly and end the fight quickly, because the longer that fight goes, the worse off my guys are going to be, because melee troops are highly dependent on their stamina. And when their stamina goes down, they fight way worse. Look how fast these guys are moving. They're pretty much moving along at a snail's pace here. So yeah, these guys definitely need to stop and take a breather, or else they're going to be dying quite soon. But he can't really stop to take a breather because the Russian has a lot more shooting troops left. So let's take a look at what happened. The Maratha's player did completely overwhelm the Russian right. So now the Russian left is coming over, though, to reinforce the positions. The Russian has some key troops left here that are going to make a big difference in this battle. He's got, more line infantry left, obviously, so he's got more firepower. He's still got some hand mortars left, and he's also got one key unit here, the Semenovsky Foot Guard, and this unit alone right here would almost be capable of taking out all of the remaining Maratha's troops. It is quite tired, but these guys are very elite and very strong in melee, very quick shooters, very accurate shooters, and they have a powerful charge as well. So this is a deadly unit indeed, and this unit can also inspire nearby units. So it leaves the Maratha's player in a tough position to try and win this battle. Plus the Maratha's player is setting up in such a way that he's got a slightly downhill position to the incoming Russian troops. But if he tries to move to remedy this, his guys are just going to remain exhausted. So there's pretty much nothing he can do about the fact that his guys are exhausted. So again, when using a melee build in Empire Total War, you've got to end that melee fight quick before your guys get exhausted. Otherwise, they are very, very prone to routing. So you've definitely got to end that fight as soon as possible. So if you're going to melee someone, melee them early and let the damage be caused early, because your shooting troops are actually going to be more handy towards the end of a fight. Unless they have time to rest or just end up in a good position. But in this case, I think you can see what I'm talking about. So let's see where most of the carnage unfolded. Again, check out all these kill zones here. That's what we'll call them, these areas, these choke points. They became a major kill zone for the battle. So whenever you're thinking about what kind of troops to bring on a map with choke points, think about troops that do well in choke points, and troops that do well in choke points are troops like these guards. Guards and rifle troops can really tear people up in a choke point, whereas melee troops and cavalry are going to be slightly less effective. So guard troops are pretty good at shooting and pretty good at melee. Another reason to consider them in this type of environment. So these Semenovsky Foot Guards are going to excel in this type of situation, in my opinion. Long range on a map like this can be handy. For instance, if you could get rifles into these woods, they would have cover to fire downhill. But again, look at the terrain. Not exactly the best terrain. They can't really see up and over this hill. So you might want to limit long-range units on a map like this too, just because when it comes down to it, there's not as many of them. So when you get in a shootout fight or a melee fight, long-range units not going to do so well for you. So you may want to limit long-range units when you're on a ridge map, depending on what you think you can do to your opponent. So let's watch this. These Sikh warriors are completely exhausted. They're going to have to charge forward into these superior Russian troops. There is a Russian hand mortar unit here. These guys are good, but you don't want to fire them at moving targets. Even exhausted targets are going to be able to move fast enough to get away from the explosions, so you can see not very effective. So you want to make sure the targets you're firing grenades or hand mortars at are stationary. Let's watch the last stand of the Marathas as they charge into this line of elite Russian troops and Cossack infantry. So this is going to be a pretty fruitless charge, I am certain, but we'll watch it nonetheless as the exhausted Marathas get engaged in a bad position by these Semenovsky foot guards. The hand mortars are firing in. That's going to kill just as many of the Russian troops as it is the Marathas troops, but the effect on morale is probably going to be worse against the Marathas just because of how tired they are. And the Russians have this nearby guard unit inspiring, so you can see that the Semenovsky foot guards break the Marathas troops and go charging forward to mercilessly kill all of them. And they're going to continue charging down the line and destroy all the remaining Marathas troops in a heroic example of what happens when you invade the motherland. So in this case, the Russian player manages to obtain victory. Let's cover the last couple of key points on ridge maps. Number 1, gain control of the high ground. Make sure your army is built to gain control of the high ground, and then make sure you use the choke points to your maximum advantage. It says patchy here. I did not play this battle. This battle was played by one of my fans who submitted. I will put their name in the description. I hope you all enjoyed this. Let's take a look at the results here. No surprise, the Semenovsky foot guards cleaned up the most kills. Again, they're very well suited to choke points. I think both players probably were smart to not bring long-range infantry. However, I do think that the Marathas player brought too much melee infantry. Some of that melee infantry could have been handy, but he should have brought more shooting infantry. And like I said, used the Marathas superior light cav and shooter cav units. I say superior. Obviously, there's other good ones out there, but the Marathas have availability of cheap light cav and cheap shooter cav, and it can be used to really tear up a flank if someone uses it right. Delhi horsemen combined with other light horsemen can really harass infantry quite effectively by forcing them into square and then having the shooter cav come by and shoot them. Anyway, good battle. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying the 20th or 20,000 subscriber celebration videos, even though we're nearing 30,000 subscribers. I don't know that I could possibly make 30 videos for the 30,000 subscribers, but I will find a way to celebrate it. Sorry I've been gone for a week. I just have a lot going on at work, plus I'm getting ready for a wedding. It keeps me extraordinarily busy, and I will get videos to you as much as I possibly can. I do intend to get another one out to you within the next couple of days, and to continue the Rome Total Realism campaign and our discussion of what we hope to see in Rome 2 Total War. Heir of Carthage, signing off for now. Enjoy it, YouTube. I will be back soon.